What is up, fam? Sorry, my mic was muted for some reason, even though I unmuted it. But what's up, guys? Sorry for the little late start. I had to go take care of some stuff, but tonight's going to be a really good topic. As you can see, we have some merch samples for my merchandise that have come in. Got the hat. Not going to lie, the hat kind of fits weird. So it's like a 50-50 if I'm actually going to like launch this. I'm having a friend set up a Shopify store for me, and I'm using Printify to kind of fulfill the orders for fulfillment. And they only have like kind of a couple options for hat. They have like a dad hat, but then this is the trucker hat. It's not like the best fit and not the best design, so I might just put it up there. Just if anyone wants it, they can get it. I probably, if I want to make hats in the future, I'll probably look at somewhere else unless they kind of have a couple different options that they add to their fulfillment services. But I have some pump covers coming in the mail. Should be here next week or so. You got the thing that's going to go back there. It's gonna come in by the end of the month. So I'm pretty excited, starting to actually get this buff Asian stuff off the ground. Just because I've been talking about it for a long time. It's really been like a year in the making, and it's finally happening. So we'll see how it goes out. Worst case scenario, no one buys anything. It's all good. And that's kind of how I set up the model for fulfillment and stuff like that, where I'm not just ordering like excess inventory and just going to like sit in my room. It's built to order, so I'm not going to necessarily make as much money, but I'm not going to have the upfront costs of ordering a bunch of inventory and stuff. So that's in the works. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, I apologize for last Thursday. I had to catch up on some stuff. It was just like a pretty long week. So I didn't do a live, but we are live tonight. And this live probably isn't going to be like extremely long, but I think it's definitely a necessary one just because I think it's really important. I haven't really done like a faith type of live in a while. So it was definitely time for one. And kind of what I've been seeing on social media and stuff. And there's this big debate going on right now, which I actually plan to make a live about this particular topic, like the Christian pill versus the red pill. I am obviously like red pill, and I do side with most stuff, pretty much most stuff red pill, but then at the same time I am a devout Christian as well. And I think there's not people are kind of going back and forth like one versus the other. It's like you need to be 100% Christian pill and like you can't follow anything the red pill does type of a thing, or the red pill is just like promoting degeneracy while the Christian pill is way more moral type of a thing. And I think there's a difference between the two for sure, but you can definitely have both. And I think the honestly the best way to incorporate and how to navigate this modern world that we live in while also holding your standards and standing up for your faith type of a thing honestly a combination of both. And it's very interesting because Rolo himself, the kind of the figurehead for the red pill space, the OG, the Godfather, is Christian himself. So if that says anything. That's going to be a debate and live for another time. I want to get more research and information under my belt before I kind of dive into that. But that's kind of the main thing happening in the manosphere right now. But kind of along the same lines, I've had actually kind of one specific instance. That's kind of why I wanted to talk about this tonight, this particular topic, standing up for your faith, why it's important, why you should. And if you're not a person of faith, like at the end of the day, people can kind of choose what they want to do. It's up to you in life, but there's a lot of fulfillment, a lot of great things that come from having some sort of faith in life. It gives you more sense of purpose and helps you find that fulfillment. That's why it's part of the four F's that Bedros Koulian says. And he's honestly not a person that really believes in God or anything like that, but he has faith in his four F's or five F's, like finances, fitness, family, faith, that eventually leads to fulfillment. I'm probably missing an F. I can't remember what it is. But so basically, kind of how I came about this topic, why I wanted to talk about this tonight was specifically in my specific church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm not going to go into kind of like all the ins and outs of it because that will take way too long. Maybe one day. I've actually been listening to a lot of podcasts regarding like my church and stuff like that. Specifically, if you're a member of the church, you should go ahead and watch The Stick of Joseph. It's the YouTube channel. I'll put them in the description. But The Stick of Joseph, they have great YouTube videos where they go into more depth. I watched a couple. They're a couple hours long, so put it on while you're at work or while you're doing something. It's definitely a great listen. I listened to a couple where it's like, did Christ actually come to America? And it kind of gets into more of the esoteric teachings, but there are a couple things, definitely several videos that dive into that they talk about kind of more core doctrine and trying to combat stuff of what modern society and kind of anti people try to attack. And based with everything, and whether it's red pill or like Christianity or whatever, how to do your finances, how you should invest your money. There's going to be people that don't believe in what you say and don't believe in what you think. And that's just kind of life. But specifically with faith, I think in general, all faith is good. And people that don't have a faith, like I said, you can kind of do whatever you want, but I think you definitely are missing something. And it works for some people, it doesn't work for other people, or may not seem like it works for other people. But I think generally speaking, it's definitely a net positive in most people, if not all people's lives. So the kind of the points that really, I keep on circling around this, but the exact point where I wanted to talk about this topic of standing up for your faith was a specific Instagram reel that I saw, I believe yesterday or the day before, where there was this guy, and I actually like a lot of his content, and I don't necessarily think, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt for sure. I'd love to know what his intent for this specific video, but most of his content is just interviewing people, how they feel about the church and stuff like that, and it's generally positive stuff. Then there's other channels that I will not name that think contrary, and I do not like them. Not necessarily just because they're non-believers per se, but they actively say stuff to get people to not believe. So this specific video was kind of different than a lot of his original content. Like I said, I don't know if he was purposely trying to do it for the controversy just to get the views, because I know people do that. Honestly, I do that for many of my short form content for sure. A little bit controversial, but this one was pretty controversial in the fact that he was talking with this kid. I'm going to call him a kid. He's probably like 20 years old or whatever. Like, you're a kid, bro. Honestly, I'm kind of still a kid too, 26, but this guy who he had like a couple tattoos, and he's like, are you a member type of a thing? And he's like, yeah, I am. He's like, but you have tattoos. Like, how are you a member if you have tattoos? And he goes into like, well, actually, obviously I'm paraphrasing it, but he's saying, oh, actually, it's okay to have tattoos as a member, and it's actually promoting. It helps bring up conversations about God, and I can talk to them more about God, type of a thing. And a lot of people in the comments were like, yes, like all the tattoos stuff, and like, yeah, you should be able to get tattoos, and it is okay to get tattoos as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, being an LDS member. And I clearly said, because there was literally at that point when I decided to comment, there was really no one that kind of backed up the faith and said, hey, like, this actually isn't okay, type of a thing. And I'll kind of go into like the ideology behind it. Because at the end of the day, everyone's an individual and they can do whatever they want. And I could honestly care less, because eventually it's just like stuff that he does is eventually going to be between him and God. Like, I'm not going to have to answer for stuff that he does. He's not going to have to answer for stuff that I do in my life. So at the end of the day, if he wanted tattoos, he wants to get tattoos, 100%, you can do whatever you want. Like, I could care less. The problem I had with what he said was, it's okay for members to get tattoos. Him saying that statement, just because it's clear in the teachings of the prophets or modern day prophets that you should not have tattoos, or you should not seek to get tattoos, type of a thing. That doesn't negate the statement as well that says, if you converted to the church or you got baptized and you're a new member and you happen to have tattoos, God's not going to like love you less. And at the end of the day, God's not going to necessarily love you less because you have tattoos or you get a tattoo. But it goes against the teaching, like, keep your body sacred, keep your body like a temple. That's why I don't have any tattoos. And to be honest, like, if we didn't really have that kind of teaching, then I mean, I'd probably have tattoos, but I don't, just because I adhere to that teaching that the prophets say. And obviously, I'm not perfect, and I'm not setting myself up to be this example or this perfect person type of a thing. Like I fall short in many areas, as does everyone. But like I said, him specifically saying it's okay to get tattoos as a member, like actively being a member, like you want to go get a tattoo, like 100% you should do it type of thing. And there's not like it's okay with the church. Like you can still go to the temple and you can do all like you can still take the sacrament stuff like that. And where that might be true, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should actively go out and do that. And he's essentially promoting it, which I clearly said. And it's like as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it is very clear that the prophets and apostles say not to get tattoos. So that is my statement, and I back up. I stand up for that statement and the teachings that they teach. And I got a lot of people in the comments, and I really find it interesting that, and I love this is what Rich Cooper says. It's like typically where you get a lot of flack for stuff is typically you're usually around you're on top of the target type of thing. So if you think of like World War II, air raid back in that day, if you're getting hit with flak, that means you're typically over your target that you're probably going to bomb. This has literally nothing to do with war stuff, but the fact that if you're starting to get flak from people, then there might be a certain chance that what you're saying is probably true. Now, that's all very relative, but I got all these people in the comments like, no, like, and we're kind of at an age like that let's be honest, it's a lot of a woke society that's just like you do you type of thing. Like it's all individual, and at the end of the day, you answer to God. Like teach like the prophets, they're men, and they sometimes mess up. And people were quoting like the New for Strength of Youth, where it doesn't specifically say do not get tattoos. In the previous one, the older version, it clearly did say, but now it's what people might seem as a gray area, but it also says counsel with your parents, and it also has the scriptures like your body's a temple, you should not do stuff that is contrary to keeping your body holy and clean, those type of things. And it says specifically counsel with parents and leaders, which leaders have clearly said not to get tattoos. But this kind of sparked up a very interesting conversation, and people were bashing me, and you kind of get the whole thing, the personal attacks and stuff. It's like, oh, look at you and type of thing. You think you're all high and mighty. And I'm like, no, I'm just standing up for what I believe in. And at the end of the day, let me be very clear. For anything you stand up for and whatever you believe in, you will get haters. That's just the end all be all. You will get haters for anything that you say, standing up and backing up what you believe, because there are people that think the contrary, and I'm not going to necessarily say those people are specifically trying to lead people astray, but they have a misconstrued conception of what the actual teachings are. And let's be honest, like, I mean, I'm vulnerable to this as well. Like something may be said and I might kind of like, oh, I don't really like the way they said that, so I'm going to like go this way type of a thing. We all do it. Doesn't necessarily mean that's right though. Like I've done in the past for sure. And I know that that wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. So that's kind of the context of why I wanted to talk about standing up for your faith, just because, and especially nowadays, it's like, it can be very hard just because, like I said, we kind of live in a very modern woke society where saying stuff that you believe in, where you might not necessarily intend to, nor you mean to like demean anyone else, but just by simply stating your beliefs, other people on the other side could think that you are hating against other people, which is clearly not the case. So, kind of some points that I wanted to touch on. First, your faith should be rooted in your testimony. I think this is where a lot of people, this is why you see a lot of people leave the church, is because for many reasons, but ultimately it comes down to this. It's like they their faith wasn't firmly rooted in a testimony, and or their testimony didn't have firm roots or deep enough roots. Just because everyone at a certain point tends to have a breaking point, but the stronger your roots are, the deeper your roots are with your faith and with your testimony, you're going to be able to withstand stand stuff. Like obviously bad stuff happens to good people. We clearly know that. And the adversary tries to tempt us and get us off the path. And eventually, like what we have to rely on is our testimony. So strengthen your testimony, you strengthen your faith, and you deepen your roots, and you can withstand more. And to be honest, Satan might even test you more because of that. So remember, all of your faith and whatever faith you stand for should be rooted in some sort in your testimony. And at the end of the day, it's like you have to find out for yourself, type of thing. You can't mooch off, you can't leech off of, you can't borrow someone else's testimony. You have to attain that for yourself. It's just like physical fitness. Like financially, yeah, you can borrow money from people and you can live off of someone else's money, but physical fitness, like you can't borrow someone's physique. You can't borrow someone's strength. Like that's something you have to earn, work hard for yourself. That's why every self-improvement guy that you ever see, especially me, go get in shape. Just because no one can take that away from you, and you have to do it for yourself, and you have to put in the work in. No one's going to do it for you. Same thing with the testimony. All right. I think point number 2, know what you're up against. I think the times of being sheltered and the times of not knowing what you're up against are over. Like we live in the modern day of age where we have the internet, endless information. There's going to be constantly people saying contrary to what you might believe in and what you really stand deeply rooted in from a faith perspective. So you have to know what you're up against. You have to kind of know what people might say to combat your stuff. Think about when you were a missionary. Obviously, I had a different experience when I was a missionary because I didn't necessarily have people Bible bash me per se. There's people that were obviously against the teachings of the church, but more so it was like more of a cultural thing. So there was a lot of what we call hantai, which is like against kind of that pressure against people joining the church or learning about the church, because it was like if you became a member, it kind of wrecked yourself culturally in a sense, or some people thought that. So that's why a lot of like parents and spouses were against people learning about the church and learning about faith. But you have to know what you're up against, because if you don't know what you're up against, think about like like we just watched the Super Bowl, right? Clearly the team that won, they knew what they were up against. The Chiefs, they knew what the overtime rules were and stuff like that. Honestly, I'm still convinced that like the Niners did know what the rules were. They were literally explained to them. If they had no idea about them, they literally were explained at the very beginning at the coin toss of overtime. So zero excuses for them. And they didn't know. It's on the coaching staff and on the players for sure. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs were more prepared just because the Niners, they honestly should have deferred instead of accepting the kickoff at the start of overtime. But I'm comparing this to sports, but a team that is going to be prepared for what they're going to go up against, the Chiefs, the fact that they knew the overtime rules, they knew exactly what their strategy was going to be. They ended up winning the game. And honestly, I think that was a big part of them winning the Super Bowl. And a big part of the San Francisco losing the Super Bowl is they were not prepared for that moment. They decided to not defer the ball, and they decided to receive the ball. They only kicked a field goal. And the Chiefs, knowing well that if they go down and score a touchdown, they can win the game and end the game. And that's exactly what they did. So you got to know what you're up against, whether it's in sports, in school, in business. Like you'd be stupid to go out in this world and start a business and not know who your competition are, or know who your peers in that space are, and maybe the people that are trying to take away market share from you. You'd be stupid to go into business and not understand that stuff and not know that stuff. You need to know that stuff. So why should religion and faith be any different? You got to know what you're up against. That doesn't mean you necessarily indulge in all the negative stuff and all the bad stuff that they tell you to stay away from, just because, oh, I need to get an experience with it just so I know what I'm up against. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean purposely sinning so you know you know not to do it. That's contrary to the point. But you need to know the things that are attacking you. So, for example, yeah, this whole like extreme, like you can do whatever you want without any consequences ideology that's getting spread around. It's like that's not how it works. Like, so you need to know what you're up against, and maybe certain accusations that people have against what you believe in. Think of it just like in an investment thesis. Like you go into a boardroom with executives and with VCs saying you're a startup and you're wanting to get investment money. for your company to further grow, they're going to try to tear you apart. So you have to know exactly kind of like what they're going to say, or what where holes might be in your company that you can quickly address, and you can counter the argument. And I'm not saying that, like, especially in a discussion of faith, I don't think you should necessarily argue. I say don't argue, but you can have a good conversation, a nice discussion, a nice debate, healthy debate. We need to debate more in life, to be honest. Too many people, they're too scared to debate, or they get canceled when they want to debate, and people get emotional and personal, and the debates are not debates. They end up just being a mudslinging fest, like a lot of politicians do when they campaign. So you need to know what you're up against. So when it comes to your faith, you can see where people disagree with you, or, hey, you believe in this or that, or I've heard you believe in this or that. Then you need to learn about that and why they might think that way. And that goes to the next point, which is try to understand where they're coming from, kind of their logic behind their argument or their claims or the questions that they have, or why they're asking specific questions. Because honestly, a lot of people just don't really know, especially when it comes to faith. We're becoming more and more of a society where people are becoming less and less religious. And even say a generation from now, our kids, there's going to be even more people that are probably non-religious. So they're going to even, one, not know anything about your faith or Christianity or whatever religion you are. And two, they probably even have more construed views or misconceptions or misunderstandings about what you believe in, just because it's not really familiar with them. Like, say, like 1,000 years ago, or maybe not 1,000 years ago, let's just say 100, 200 years ago, like, people pretty much knew what Christianity was, at least in the Western world. So, like, wasn't really much debates like what Christianity was. Obviously, there might be slight disagreements or slight, what's the word for it? Slight differences in people's theological thoughts, and maybe certain sects of churches of Christianity. But generally, like, everyone kind of knew what Christianity was. But nowadays, we're not. It's not really the case, or it's starting to trend towards not being the case. So try to understand where someone's coming from, because in most situations, it might just be that person doesn't really know. That doesn't mean they're dumb or they're stupid for, like, kind of saying what they're saying. So you got to dig back and kind of understand where they're coming from. And it shows kind of advanced thinking on your end. So someone might say kind of something outlandish at first, and you might immediately want to respond and act emotional, but instead act a little bit more logical, a little bit more rational, and ask them, oh, why do you think that? Or, like, how did you kind of come to that conclusion? Ask those types of questions. That way you can get clarity. This is not just in a religious or faith debate or discussion. This can be in business as well. The thing you notice is a lot of this stuff is very all encompassing with business, fitness, and just, it's all encompassing. So these skills are very good to learn. I think I even had a live on, like, how to ask questions, which I'm still learning myself. But try to understand where someone's coming from, their logic behind it, their understanding, because a lot of more times than not, it can just be some sort of misunderstanding on their part. And it could be a misunderstanding on your part, something that they say might come off maybe a little bit more negative than they're intending to be. So you can get clarity, and then you can kind of sort that things out. And a lot of times the issue will kind of be dismissed, and it won't be as direct and contentious as before. All right, next point. Disagreement does not mean hate. It's fine to disagree with someone. I know in society now it's kind of crazy, but someone disagreeing with you does not mean you hate that person. For a lot of people, it does mean. If you disagree with me, that means you hate me, and you're a bigot, and you're all these types of words that they call you, misogynist or whatever. It doesn't, like, yeah, that's not the case. So don't be afraid to disagree or to correct someone, to, like, especially if it's your personal beliefs. I think it's find it very interesting. I don't know if I want to necessarily use the word funny, because I want to demean the person, because like I said, most people just kind of have a misunderstanding of stuff, especially when it comes to stuff they're not very well versed in, which could be like your own religion or what your own beliefs. But I think it's kind of interesting that people tell me what I believe in, and I try to say, actually, I don't really believe in that. We believe in this, and they tell me I'm wrong. I'm like, I mean, who's the member of that church or that religion? It's me, not you. So I find that very interesting. But disagreement does not mean hate. You can disagree with someone, doesn't mean you hate them, doesn't mean you don't want to be friends with them, type of a thing. And honestly, if people do come off like that, and if you disagree with them, then they think they hate you, then just like don't associate with those people. Just leave. Like you can't you can't intelligently talk to someone who's very emotional and just throwing mud at you, accusations, and they don't have really any logic or any background or foundation for where they're coming from or why they think that way. And if you disagreeing with them just means that they're just going to call you names, then don't engage with them. Disengage, move on. Go to someone who's going to have an intelligent conversation and an actual discussion or debate with you rather than someone who's just going to throw names at you. And never be the person that throw names at anyone else as well, just because it's just like, one, it's not mature. Two, you come off as very unintelligent. And then three, it's just like a waste of time, to be frank. So disagreement doesn't mean hate. You can disagree with someone, doesn't mean you hate them or they hate you. People can agree to disagree. All right. Last thing I'm going to touch on is go back and focus on the principles. It's very interesting that, especially in this whole debate where it's like the Christians versus the red pillars, like if you go just back to the fundamentals and the principles, like they agree on probably like 95% of things when it comes to like base principles, but they focus on the very nuanced, very specific stuff like experience with women and stuff like that. I'm not going to get all to just because, like I said, I'm going to address that in another live. But if you go back to the fundamentals and the basics and the principles, as I like to say, like the principles of the gospel, faith, repentance, baptism, and the basic teachings that Christ taught during his ministry and what the prophets teach, the modern day prophets, everyone generally agrees with that. It's like, be a good person, like be honest, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. If you have abundance, then help people that are not as abundant or maybe struggling a little bit. Like help out your neighbor. I mean, who can disagree with that stuff, you know? Like at the end of the day, if you're doing good, then it's just like a good thing. Like people get caught up in all the nuances and all the very esoteric teachings as we say, just like the teachings that don't really like aren't that important. They're not the core doctrine. Like for example, it's just like, all right, it's not necessarily esoteric teaching, but it's just it's like a supplemental teaching. It's like that we believe that you shouldn't get tattoos. It's like that's not necessarily core doctrine per se, but that's also something that we shouldn't like act. We shouldn't. Uh, what's the word? We shouldn't advertise like, yes, do it, get one. If you get one, it's fine, type of a thing. And like at the end of the day, it's like if you have a tattoo, it's just like it's kind of whatever, but it doesn't mean you should seek out doing it. Just like before, it's like if you used to be like drink a lot of alcohol, smoke a lot of weed or something, and you've kind of changed, it's like cool, like awesome, whatever. But if you're just like actively doing that, it's like, I mean, technically, like smoking weed, it's not written directly into the commandments per se, but like it doesn't mean you should do it, type of thing. Like, let's be honest. All right, but go back to the focus on the principles because, like I said, at the end of the day, 99% of people, or like maybe not 99%, excuse me, but maybe like 95% of people will agree on those base principles. People that don't agree on those base principles, like they're probably like the people that are mudslinging and stuff like that. Not all the time, but I'd probably say majority of the time. So, like I said, if those people disengage, if you disagree with them and they think that you hate them and you're all this bad stuff and they start calling you names, disengage with them, don't engage with them. Go to someone who's going to agree to disagree and know that's okay. So go back, focus on the fundamentals, focus on the principles, because 99% of people will end up agreeing on those principles. And honestly, like most of our teachings in the gospel, like come down to that. people get stuck in the nuances and the extra teachings, the extra opinions and stuff. And we all have our own personal opinions and our own interpretations per se, but got to go back to the fundamentals and the principles. That's what the gospel is about. It's about simpleness and plainness. It's literally written in the scriptures. So I will leave it at that. Kind of want to get that off my chest. I think it's very necessary. And for those of you who are faithful or of are faithful people and religious like myself, like stand up for yourself. Like don't let people walk all over you. That doesn't mean you have to act self-righteous and you have to act like you're necessarily better than someone else because you believe a certain set of teachings and because they don't believe it you're better than them. No, that's not the case. We're always loving towards people, and even though like I stand up for my beliefs, like anyone, you can ask anyone who's met me in person, like I'm a nice guy, like I don't seek contention and I don't seek to put other people down. But that also goes to show like as well, it's like I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I trust people in the very beginning, no matter who you are. But if you wrong me or you cross me or you do something to kind of take away that trust, then that's a totally different story. I'm not stupid. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like be a delightful. You can be a faithful person, stand strong in your belief without being like a negative, bad, like douchey person. Like at the end of the day, so be that polite, pleasant person. But that's also standing up for your faith and standing up for belief. Because what does that breed? That breeds confidence. And what do people love? People that are confident and they stick by what they believe in. No one wants a wishy-washy person, and especially women. So this honestly helps you with dating as well, just because hey, stand up for my faith. Like we can agree to disagree, and honestly, even girls that may not be of your faith or whatever, they'll respect you more, and honestly, they'll probably like you even more just because you stand up for what you believe in. So leave it at that. As with everything, you know how it is. Try to get you guys stronger, smarter, healthier, wealthier. So go ahead, follow for more lives, follow for more tips. Look out for the merch, the apparel coming in soon. Hopefully, gonna have the once I kind of get the samples in, I kind of choose what I want to put up. It's gonna be very limited at first, so probably like 3 to 4 items, if not maybe even less. But look out for that. I'll let you guys know. Pick up some stuff if you want to. Don't feel obligated to, but it's gonna be pretty sick. All right, catch y'all later. Cue the outro.